Raditz, the older brother of Goku, who arrives at the beginning of the Dragon Ball Z series in search for Goku to recruit him to the Frieza Force. Unfortunately, he is met by a sudden and instant demise when he's defeated by Piccolo's famous Special Beam Cannon. After his very short and brief appearance, that's kind of all we see of Raditz. But what if that wasn't the case? What if Raditz survived Piccolo's attack? Or better yet, what if Raditz wasn't an everlasting evil person who eventually becomes good like Vegeta? Well, today I'll answer those questions for you in my Dragon Ball What If series. This is DragonBallMedia, and today we're going to figure out what if Raditz survived. Make sure you subscribe so you can get notified of my upcoming Dragon Ball What If videos. Leave a like to show support on the series, and comment below a what if suggestion that could make it to a video eventually. Now without further ado, let's get into the video. So before we begin, let's give a little backstory of Raditz's character, show his upbringing, and the events leading up to his unfortunate demise. This will give us a better understanding of the character so we can analyze what he would be like if he survived Piccolo and Goku's attack. So for starters, Raditz was born on January 9th, age 727. Raditz was a character who wasn't necessarily a leader either. Like most Saiyans, he had this arrogance about him, even noted in his early childhood years. But this didn't suffice, as he would always follow Vegeta and Nappa's group around after joining them. Now what's interesting about Raditz is he would later go on to join the Frieza Force, but wasn't necessarily happy about it. You see, while planet Vegeta was getting slaughtered by Frieza, Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz were off conquering the planet Sheik for Frieza. Once they return, Frieza lashes insults at them because of how long it took them to conquer the planet. When this happens, we see three personality traits appear. Nappa gets extremely angry and wants to fight Frieza. Vegeta takes the insults and tells his friends to stand down as Frieza was obviously too strong, and Raditz reacts in a disappointed, angry sort of way. From this alone you can see that Raditz is too scared to lash out, but seems to hold some sort of grudge that he never acts on. You see, when Frieza was having all of the Saiyans killed on planet Vegeta, Raditz's girlfriend Maria was also those among killed, when she was caught trying to leave with her family to Earth. Not necessarily the most pleasant upbringing, but you can tell Raditz should hold some sort of hatred for Frieza, even if he continues to serve under him. It speaks a lot on his character though when he doesn't ever act on it and does as he's told, sort of like a coward or a weakling. Now when we see Raditz's first appearance within the Dragon Ball Z series, he once again shows off his arrogance when trying to recruit Goku, or Kakarot as he calls him. After telling Goku of his backstory, Goku obviously still refuses, which prompts Raditz to kidnap Gohan until Goku decides to fight him. Once again I must reiterate that Raditz was on a mission to show up on Earth to recruit Goku by the Frieza Force to join them. He wasn't there to just be of an annoyance, which he obviously ended up doing, but during this time you can see that his personality is a lot like Vegeta at the time, killing people with no care in the world, acting as if he's top-notch when bragging about how Piccolo's blast did nothing to him. We might as well just call him Vegeta. Now let's fast forward to the fight because this is what this whole video is centered around. According to the Daizenshu 7 book, Raditz's power level at the time was around 1500. Piccolo's Special Beam Cannon, that ended up being fatal, had a power level of 1480. Now obviously this is a little less, but after fighting with Goku and Piccolo and receiving a gut-wrenching headbutt from Gohan, Raditz was obviously a little tired and weak from those encounters, so his power level was obviously probably a little lower. I also might mention that Goku's peak power level of 924, Piccolo's peak power level of 1480, and Gohan's peak power level of 1307 altogether could have stopped Raditz, which is what obviously ended up happening. So now that we all have that broken down, let's factor in some of my theories as to what would have happened if Raditz didn't meet his untimely end. I'm going to list multiple outcomes, as there's a lot of different scenarios that could have happened if Piccolo and Goku didn't kill him off. Let's start with the obvious one. Raditz somehow still gets hit by Piccolo's Special Beam Cannon, but doesn't die. When factoring in the power levels just a little bit ago, we can conclude that Piccolo's attack just barely killed Raditz, as we can see him talking to Piccolo as he lays dying. So if this attack doesn't end up killing him, what happens? Well, I'm going to assume he tried to do the same thing as what Vegeta did after his fight with Goku. He tried to get into his space pod and fly off. Now when Vegeta was attempting to leave, Krillin could have killed him, but Goku talked him out of it. After Piccolo's blast, Goku also was alive for just a little bit as well. So if Raditz tried to leave within his pod, Goku probably would have talked Piccolo out of, killing him as well, and he would have flew off and regained his strength with Frieza and Nappa. If that's the path that would have taken place, the whole fight between the Z Warriors, Nappa and Vegeta, would have went down a lot differently too, as Raditz would have joined them. In my opinion, if Raditz would have made it back to his group and joined them later on when they all arrived back on Earth, it probably would have been the end of the Z Warriors for good, with no Super Saiyan Goku to finish them all off, unless Vegeta's arrogance kills Raditz the same way he did with Nappa, but who really knows. Now on to scenario number 2. What if Raditz survived and became good? Now this is a really far-fetched one, but hear me out. So as I've stated earlier within the video, Raditz was a lot like Vegeta with his arrogance and his bragging, but he wasn't as bad as Vegeta. Not only that, but Frieza also killed Raditz's parents and his girlfriend, so he probably shares a very strong hatred for Frieza, maybe even more than Vegeta. However, let's say Raditz has a change of heart when coming to Earth. When he first shows up to Roshi's island, Raditz sees Goku with all of his friends and even his son. On the off chance that the situation sparks a light in Raditz, maybe reminiscing the times when Raditz and his girlfriend was at her brother's tournaments again. I know it's extremely hard for, Saiyans to have compassion, especially when they're grown, but even the most arrogant Saiyan of them all, Vegeta, had a change of heart eventually. So Raditz changes his mind about destroying all of Earth inhabitants, and doesn't try to kill off or recruit Goku. What happens now? Well, the Frieza Force keeps tabs on the Saiyans when they're out overtaking other planets, so eventually they'd wonder why it's taken Raditz this long to return. Also, Vegeta and Nappa would also wonder what's taken so long, but they probably wouldn't have noticed until returning back to Frieza. On the off chance Raditz joins Goku and friends and informs them of his situation, I'd assume he'd have no choice but to help Goku in defeating Vegeta and Nappa when they arrive. Within this scenario, it alters a lot of timelines here. When Raditz was dying after getting blasted by Piccolo, Piccolo says to Raditz that they're going to end up bringing Goku back with the Dragon Balls. Raditz, having a scouter attachment, records and sends back this information to Vegeta and eventually Frieza, which is one of the biggest reasons why Vegeta, Nappa, and then Frieza even show up to begin with. So now that Raditz joins Goku, this doesn't happen. I'm assuming he'd be smart enough to either turn off the scouter or break it, but unfortunately it'd be too late as Vegeta would have caught word that Raditz is even joining Goku to begin with. Eventually, when Vegeta and Nappa arrive on Earth and the big fight begins, Goku will have a pretty good backup partner. Or would he have? We know that Raditz's peak power level in the Raditz saga was around 1500, but during the Saiyan invasion, Nappa has a power level of 4000 and Vegeta has a power level of 18,000. By this logic, Raditz really doesn't stand a chance at all against his former group. So would he have played a significant role at all in helping the Z Fighters? Probably not. At the time, and according to the Daizenshu 7 book, Krillin had a power level of 1770, which is 200 more power than Raditz. So realistically speaking, if Raditz would have joined the Z Fighters, he would have been obliterated by Vegeta, just like what he did with Nappa. Maybe if Raditz did a little training on Earth, he could have grew a little bit, but unfortunately he couldn't come anywhere close to Goku, as he was off training with King Kai and would later have a peak power level of over 21,000. And that concludes my theories as to what would have happened if Raditz lived. With him either living and grouping up with Vegeta or living and joining Goku, both would have been pointless, as his overall power level and just development was pretty lackluster. It sucks too because when you talk about the strongest, most important character in anime history, that being Goku, you have to imagine his brother of all characters being close if not just as remarkable. Unfortunately, with how they did Raditz, he was doomed from the beginning. I think with how they set Dragon Ball Z this way when he arrives is probably the only way they could have went with it. And honestly, when you put these perspectives I've mentioned into play, it probably would have been for the best. Although I wish Raditz could have been, a more dominant powerhouse of a character, just from his lack of mention in childhood development had me realize that he was pretty worthless from the start. If anything, I wish he would have eventually had the Saiyan balls to stand up to Frieza and make an attempt at betraying him for what he did to his people, parents, and girlfriend. But we never got to see that. One could argue that a scenario where Raditz acquired the Dragon Balls and wished for something significant would be cool. Unfortunately, it's very implausible as he only found out about the Dragon Balls when he was pretty much dying. So Raditz will go down and stay within infamy as one of the worst characters that could have been great. And that is it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. And like I said, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe and leave a like. This will help out the series tremendously, and I will try to upload at least 2 to 3 of these a week. Like I said, it does take a little bit of editing to make these videos, but it is actually pretty fun. And this is probably one of the most requested, in my opinion, that I wanted to do really much so, just because Raditz is an infamous character. Unfortunately, after doing a little bit of back research and coming up with my own theories, it is to stay in conclusion that Raditz is pretty worthless just from how they developed him. But anyways, guys, this is DragonBallMedia, and I will see you guys in the next video.